Today we're going to continue with the installation of the scuppers. This time concentrate on the most forward one, which is attached to a drainage area in the bow called the manger. I hope I've got the pronunciation correct. And this one was slightly larger than the rest because when the anchors were pulled in, they would bring up a lot of sand and mud and of course water. And so they would need a bigger hole for the water to drain. There was one other that is amidship and is attached to the pumps. So we're going to install this one, and we've made this one a bit bigger. And I've done the same as I've done with the previous video where I showed you how I made these up. And these are the outside diameter of the flange is 9 inches, and the internal diameter I have it as 7¼ inches. The challenge I have is when I go inside and I make up the 7¼ internal scuffer, it looks out of scale, and so I'm going to reduce the size of it back down to the scuffer size that I had put originally, simply to keep the look correct. Now it's time to put the internal pieces, and that's a whole new challenge. How we drill the holes or open the holes, and secondly, the scale of which these internal holes are made to. The first thing is, whereas on the outside we painted the outside of the flanges black, on the inside these channels were made up of lead, and so it would be some sort of gray material. So using the brass rods, clearly if I painted them black, that might be an issue, because at best the color should be a gray silver. But first we had to establish exactly where the scuppers went. I used a punch to get the hole exactly where I wanted it. Then I used a series of diamond bits. This pointy one was helpful in starting the hole, and then started to bring the size of the hole up, increasing it to just short of the exact size that would be needed. Having established these holes, the next thing was to decide how I was going to make them up. And I started using my brass pieces, because I can solder these, to experiment with how the internal scuffer should look. I have made up a little jig with the waterway, and here you'll see the 9-inch flange, and here is the 6¼ inch flange, and there's no question that that's too oversized, and that's the correct size. So here we put a trial fit using the brass tube, and then I actually made up a piece and covered it black, and it really looks awful. So I went out and made a piece using some aluminum tube, and what a difference it made. It's not often I can go down to one of our shops, in this case a marine shop, and find stock, because I only had a small piece of that aluminum tube. But I was able to get exactly the size I wanted, which is back to the 6¼ inches. And I'm going to use this to make up all the internal scuppers. And the method is simple. I'm going to file this absolutely flat at a 45-degree angle, and I'm using this board to keep it close so that I don't get a bending of the aluminum because it's very flexible. And now we'll just clean that up. And yes, it does get quite hot, so this is taking off all the burrs. And then do the same thing on the other side. And I made up this little jig which has a preset of where I want to cut the piece. And so all I need to do is do this. And again, you'll see that I am not using any fancy saw. And that's the piece we're cutting out. And here we have a bunch of them already pre-cut. So now we're going to place them in. And what we need to do is slowly open up the holes. So I've put a few in already. So there's been a bit of a learning process. And the first thing I realize is that I need to slowly open or put some depth so that I'm taking this drill bit at 45 degrees and going to, and that takes me through to the space. And now I'm going to open it up using this diamond bit, and I check it with the main aluminum piece. It's kind of tight, which is what we want, but I want to open it up some more, but I want to do it by hand. So I have the correct size drill bit, and I'm just slowly opening it up till I get to the back. Again, I'm doing it by hand because I don't want to take the chance of making the hole too big. And so we'll do the last test. All right, so we got a nice fit. It's not too tight. And now I can put the piece in. So I do a trial test. All right, and that's it. Now what we're going to do is we have a choice of glues. Now in the past I would have used epoxy for this, but I actually want, I don't want a cleanup issue, and I want the glue to blend in with the wood that is there. So I'm going to put some PVA, which will be fine. Make sure I get nice coverage on all the outside edges. And now I get the piece, and again I want to make sure I get nice coverage, and we fit it in. And I don't mind if it sticks out a little bit too much, but what I want to do is take off that excess glue. Paintbrush, I'm just going to take that out. And as I say, I don't mind if it's a little high because I'm going to put a sander on it. So I'm going to show you this one. I put this one in about an hour ago. So we got a little bit of gumming up there because the glue wasn't that hard as yet. But you see I'm getting a nice clean scuffer line. This one needs to come down a little bit more. So we just continue going along and get all of them in, and then we can just lightly sand this back and we'll get back that nice clean finish. Well, I'm really happy with that. I'm going to leave it to dry and then sand it down so I get a nice clean line between the scuffer, drain, and the waterway. And then I'll just come and do the same thing on the other side. But you can clearly see as I move along, they're getting better. The holes are tighter. The piece fits better. So I'm pretty happy with how that came out. And if you notice, I'm seeing a little bit of white here, which is some of the wipe-on poly has come off. That's going to all disappear. Once we clean it up and put the white-on poly back again, we'll get a nice continuous tone on the deck boards. So we're sanding it down, and to make sure that we don't see blotches, we need to widen out the sanding areas. Just a very light sanding to take away any look like you've just sanded one spot. And then we'll vacuum it up. Nice clean cloth, and we can just wipe on the poly. And I think we should do at least 2 or 3 coats so it all blends right back in. Again, the beauty of wipe-on poly is you spread it around, and it's simply building up on the last coat. And you can see all the individual sanding spots have disappeared, and it's all just blending in beautifully. So I'm going to put 2 more coats down, let that dry, and this exercise is complete. Another milestone completed. It never fails to remind me how intimidating this task seemed at the beginning, and now with a little bit of patience, how really easy it was. One of the wonderful resources available to all of us if you simply join the Nautical Research Guild is the Model Ship World, where You can go and see the experience. There are a number of these builds actually going on. You can follow and learn from the experience of others, and then apply based on your skill and your ability and the resources you have available. Apply those techniques to build your model. So we'll see you in the next video, and remember, keep modeling.